I know you wonder a lot as a business owner, what are the types of employee training? By the end of this video, you're going to be equipped with the 3 types of employee training that every business owner ought to deliver their team so that you can be liberated from chaos to make time for the things that matter most. Does it drive you crazy when an employee just won't do the common sense stuff that they're supposed to do? Or does it drive you mad when an employee does things poorly or, man, that's not the way we're supposed to do things around here? How many times does that run through your head? First thing I want to tell you, business owner, is congratulations for asking the question and being willing just to get that out, right? And go, yeah, this is a common frustration for me, and I'm really, I don't know what to do about it. That's why you're here. So I'm going to see if I can help you. One thing I do want to remind you of, and I want you to hear a lot of empathy from me on this. Just remember this, what's common to you is not common to me. I know we talk about common sense all the time, but the reality is it really is a myth when it comes to running a business. Because I could line up 10 people that all have QuickBooks experience, I could run them through a test account for monthly reconciliation, they would run it 10 different ways as they run in. So we could call it common sense, but the reality is they all do it in different ways. So what's common to you is not common to me or anybody else. Let's dive into a few different types of training that I think will be really important. The first is what we call soft skills training. Now, this is the one that is also hardest for me as a teacher, as a coach, as an advisor to be able to come to you and convince you to actually spend time, attention, and money on. Because you look at it and you're like, what are we doing here? Do I need to remind you the cultural milieu that we're in right now, this cultural element? There are a lot of people that I'm surrounded by, that you're surrounded by, that just struggle to hold a human conversation, right? Why? It's because they've never gone through the hard work of those soft skills. Why? It's because many of us have been discipled by technology. Did you grab that? We have been discipled and trained by technology instead of being discipled, trained, led by other people. And so there's a value in being able to shake a firm hand, to look in the eye, to be able to sit in one place for a long period of time and have a conversation. One of the things my wife and I do on a regular basis, we rip this off from somebody else, is we dialogue daily, date weekly, depart quarterly, and dream annually. In fact, if you want to hear more videos about that, just put that in the comments section. I'd love to talk more about that idea. But what's my point around doing that? Well, when we dialogue daily or date weekly, we are intentionally saying we're going to put the devices away, we're going to put the TV screens away, we're going to put these distractions away, and it's just going to be me and you, human to human, communication to communication, eye to eye, so that we can have a real-time communication together. And there's a lot of people that you're hiring right now that don't have those skills. So one of the types of training that you need to lean into them is this idea of soft skills training. Wait a second, are you telling me that I need to teach somebody how to look me in the eye when we talk to them? Yeah, because a lot of them don't know how to do it. They look down. They don't know how to respond to certain things. Have you ever read an email from somebody that they sent back to you, you're like, what in God's name were they thinking when they wrote this email? Well, they weren't. They just wrote down how technology has trained them to think. And so if you grew up in a world where everybody's opinion was all over the internet and you had no filter for explaining that, you would lash back at that as well. But many people who are in older generations, you've been trained some soft skills to some degree. Not all, but some. And so now what we've got to do is commit to that idea of equipping our people. Remember, that's the definition of leadership, is to equip people with knowledge tools so that they can manage perennial problems. So I want you to think about this, because you might be thinking, what are the soft skills? Go back, this is the easy way to do it. What are all the things that your team members have done, your customers have done, your vendors have done, whatever, where you look at it and you're like, God, this drives me crazy in how they say something and how they respond, how they don't respond, timeliness, they show up late, whatever. I want you to make a list. Just get out a scratch sheet of paper. Make a list of all those things that other people do that just grate at you. And it's usually not a technical list of to-dos. It's usually a soft skill list that they don't know how to respond. And so if you can write that list down, one of the things we train on is this idea of active listening. So we literally train our team. When you are listening to somebody, don't have your eyes down. Don't be looking at a screen over here. Look at them. And then give nods. Give verbal feedback. Okay? Yes. Move your hands when you talk. Whatever it might be, you're giving cues. We're actually training on that. You don't need to be a PhD to build a training program around this. Just write down a list on a scratch sheet of paper of the things that frustrate you, and then let's talk about them on a repetitive, predictable, and meaningful basis all throughout the year. The second type of training that you can offer your employees is what we call systems training. So we have soft skills training, and we have systems training. What is systems training? Well, those are all the operational processes that it takes to run a job role, or it takes to run the entire business. So we have a tool that we call the Master Process Roadmap. Super simple, it's on a spreadsheet, and 4 columns. So every business has 4 foundational cornerstones: purpose, people, process, and profit. And then within that process vertical, every business has what we call the 4 core systems: marketing, sales, operations, administration, and accounting. So again, on a scratch sheet of paper, or if you want to get super fancy and go on a spreadsheet, you can do that. I want you to create 4 columns: marketing, sales, ops, and admin. I want you to set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes on your phone, and I want you to set the timer, no distractions, turn your email off, turn everything off, tell everybody you know, I am unavailable. By the way, we call that the dental chair principle. What? I hate the dentist. I know. Here's what the dental principle is. If you went to the dentist and you were sitting in the dental chair, and you had a hygienist who had his or her fist down your throat, and your phone rang, are you going to answer the phone? No. And when somebody leaves you a message or sends you a text and you call them back when you get out and you go, hey, sorry, I couldn't answer. I was in the dentist chair when you called. Are they going to be mad at you? No. You were unavailable. You were at the dental chair. So why don't, when you're sitting working on these things, why don't you just tell people, I am unavailable during that time? Keep it with the same level of integrity that you do if you were just sitting in a dentist chair somewhere. So you've set your timer, 5 to 10 minutes. You're starting to map out all these things. All the titles of the things that you put under sales, for instance, the estimating process, or the sales script, or the sales tools, whatever. Those are all operational processes that now need to be trained. So we've got the soft skill, how to interact with human beings. We've got the systems processes. These are all the how we do things every single day in our business in order to fulfill our vision and our mission and our values. There's another element of training that I think is incredibly helpful and often underutilized. So let's talk about culture skills. That's right. So we've got soft skills. We've got the system skills. Those are those hard things you do every day. But then we have the cultural skills. Now, here's what's challenging. Is a lot of us, when we hear the term culture, we think, oh yeah, beanbag chairs and ping pong tables, and we're going to swing from the ceiling and have soda fountains and lunch on Fridays as a team and all that stuff. Listen, that stuff's great. I hope you have all that stuff. I hope it's fantastic. But many of us look at culture like it's some sort of cross your finger hope for reality, when in truth, culture is something that we build. What? Think of it like this. I don't know if you're a whiskey drinker or a bourbon drinker. I don't drink much of it, but I've been on a bourbon trail in Kentucky to see how they make whiskey. Pretty fascinating. And quite simple. So if you look at it this way, they take a bucket of mash, about a 55-gallon drum of mash. What's in the mash? Water, yeast, and grain. That's it. They pour the mash into a pot. They light the pot on fire, heat under it. It distills and it comes out in a jar and it's clear. They call it in Kentucky white lightning or Mountain Dew. Why do they call it that? Because it'll burn your throat and make you want to scream and die when you drink it. 140, 150 proof. It'll light stuff on fire, quite literally, if you're not careful with it. And so with that, you take a little sip of the whiskey and you ask yourself, hey, what does that taste like? Well, if you came back and said it tastes like pizza, why? Why would it taste like pizza? We didn't put pizza in. No, it tastes like the grain that you put in at the front. Here's the reality about culture. Your culture is a direct result of the ingredients that you plant. So if you don't like your culture, then you either allowed your culture to be built by default, the world around you, or you planted some crummy ingredients and you are growing those crummy ingredients. So instead, what we want to do is we want to actively take control of the petri dish of our culture and start to grow the culture that we want to grow. How do we do that? Well, there's a couple ways. If you have a company handbook, that's one way to grow culture. I know you're going to roll your eyes at me, be like, oh my gosh, company handbook. Yeah, we wrote that years ago. It sits on the shelf. It's dusty. We don't ever look at it. It's so stupid. The reality is it is a rich database of training for your culture. How do people deal with business credit cards? How do they deal with maternity leave? How do they deal with time away? Those are all cultural elements. But if it's sitting on a shelf collecting dust, then of course your culture is not going to match what you've already written down about it. So your handbook is one easy way to start building culture right away. I'm going to give you another one. It's a tool we call the anchor. Now, I know what you're thinking, some expensive software he's going to sell me. No. It's on a spreadsheet. Across the horizontal top, write the weeks of the year. First week of the year, second week of the year, just put the dates of the first Monday of every week, all across the top. You'll have 52 of them. And then down the left-hand side, just make a list of all the ingredients that you want to plant in the culture that you want to build. Do you want repetitive, predictable, meaningful meetings? Put a line item for team meetings. Do you want repetitive, predictable, and meaningful? I'll start using RPMs. Do you want RPM check-ins one-on-one? Do you want RPMs rememberings of people's birthdays and anniversary? Do you want RPMs around training, around marketing and sales and operations and administration? Do you want RPMs around your soft skills? Well, if you have the weeks of the year on your anchor and you have all those ingredients over here, then you just go cell by cell and put the topic of what you want to train on and train on it in your team meeting every single week. Scott, that's a lot of work. Yeah, gardening's a lot of work. But when you garden, you get the result of the seeds that you planted. So if you don't want great, healthy culture, then don't plant seeds of intentionality or seeds of RPMs, repetition, predictability, and meaning. There's another element to building culture, and that's building your vision, mission, values. Let me tell you the difference between the three. Vision is a detailed snapshot of the future. It's longer than a sentence in a paragraph, by the way. People say, oh yeah, we have a vision. No, you don't. You've got an aspiration. I want details of where we're going. Hey, I'm going to Boise. No. Details. I'm going to a beautiful city in kind of almost the Pacific Northwest, surrounded by mountains with snow in the winter where you can ski. I'm giving you details of that vision. Values are the curbs along the side of the road to help you make decisions. Your mission, why are you going to Boise? And so when we've got that articulated, we review it every 2 months, and then we have our anchor where we're tracking all those processes all throughout the year. And then we've got our handbook where we're training all this. We train it every week. Scott, that's going to take forever. I know. The handbook takes about 2 minutes a week. The operational processes take about 5 minutes each. And to review your vision, mission, values every 2 months takes about an hour. If you don't have that, you have no business starting a business. Sorry to be a little harsh, but that's the reality because other people are depending, their livelihood is dependent on you and how you build that culture. If you want to find, hire, and retain people long term, then you need to build a culture that invites people and attracts people to come do hard things. Actually, I've got a great action item for you. To get started on this, I've got another video that you can click the link down in the notes below, how to track employee training in Excel. This is going to be a game changer for you, and it's an actionable video that you can watch. So go click on that right now. Hey, my name's Scott Beebe. We work with business owners between 3 and 100 employees to build their purpose, people, process, and profit so that you, the business owner, can be liberated from chaos to make time for what matters most.